You're listening to the Wayward Atheist Podcast. Hello, everyone. If this is your first time listening, thank you for joining us. This is a podcast where borders collide, where the gloves are off, where filters are removed, where we tell you exactly what we think about the news, politics, and religion. The Wayward Atheist Podcast is dedicated to free thought, reason, and the pursuit of truth. You can follow us on Twitter at Wayward Atheist, on Spreaker, Stitcher, and iTunes. You can email us at waywardatheistpodcast@gmail.com or leave us a comment on our Facebook page. So without further ado, let's get on with the show.
This week's episode of The Wayward Atheist has been brought to you by the Crafty Freethinker. Tired of boring old jewelry and charms? Why not wear a motherfucking T-Rex around your neck? Or a pendant of the Scarlet A? Handmade, secular, and science jewelry from the Crafty Freethinker gives you a nice alternative to boring old jewelry. Find the Crafty Freethinker on Etsy and Amazon. Links are in the show notes, or simply Google the Crafty Freethinker as one word. Hello and welcome to the Wayward Atheist Podcast. I'm Dave, aka the Great White North.
I'm Big Black A Dave.
And I'm Ed, the Everyday Atheist.
Hello there, guys. How are you doing tonight?
It's been awesome.
That wasn't awkward at all.
No, it feels like we haven't been on in a long while.
No, we haven't. So I'll ask you guys, what have you been up to? We'll start with David.
Working with no ing, just IN and apostrophe.
95.
Exactly. Just working, writing, and staying sane.
Staying sane. How's your composure? How would you say that? Not composure.
My composure? I feel like I'm very composed.
You're pretty composed. How is your song that you are composing coming along?
It's good. It's about 80% done, but
that's really good.
Right, yeah.
Right on. And when's your deadline?
No deadline yet.
No deadline?
No, because I still have like a year. I'm just less than a year, right?
Yeah, well, you have till July, right? July 1st?
It's plenty of time.
And are you going to be the one that plays it, or are you going to be part of the orchestra?
Nope.
Are you going to be composing the orchestra?
I am the composer of the musical work.
Okay, what do you call the guy that's up there with the two sticks?
Oh, conducting? No, I will not be conducting it.
Why? You're not going to conduct your own piece?
Because there's going to be a conductor, a way more experienced conductor than I am.
Oh, okay. Well, I conduct my piece.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, my single piece. My fucking skin trumpet.
Skin
flute. My skin flute.
Yeah.
That's
the way you do it.
I conduct that shit. You have a newer position at work, right?
Yes.
Are you a boss now?
No, but it's definitely more responsibility.
More responsibility. So you can't tell people what to do?
No. Not in that many words. No, not really, but.
Alrighty. And Eduardo.
I am up to my eyeballs. Now, I'm just doing fuck all as usual.
Living the life of Riley.
I wish, yeah.
Collecting the WSIB.
Yeah. Workman's comp, yeah. Sucks being the only person here that is going insane slowly by not being able to work. It sucks. Enjoy working, people. Don't take it for granted.
Well, I guess it depends on what job they have, right?
True.
Because what if your job was like Trump's ball washer?
Yeah, don't enjoy that job at all.
Washer, singular, or we're talking about the same?
Well, he only has one ball left. I'm assuming
there's
one ball and a micro penis, and they're both orange.
Oh, nasty! That's okay.
They're orange because of the spray tan, and then he's scratching his nuts in it. Bleeds off. His nut. I'm sorry, he's scratching his fucking nut.
Did you say nectarine?
Said nectarine, yeah. That's the smallest orange I know. Well, natural. Well, you know.
Oh, nasty.
The orange man with tiny hands and the even tinier dick.
Oh, so Dave, what have you been up to?
Oh, me? Work. My brakes went out in my truck when I was driving, so that was pretty fucking hectic. I wouldn't recommend people try that out. That's for sure. And it's my son's 7th birthday tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. Happy birthday.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's weird to think about because I can still remember him as like a tiny baby. Like, it's flown by, but it hasn't flown by. It's kind of a very surreal feeling.
Do you feel like you're you know, when you bring home a new baby, you're kind of helpless. You don't know what the hell you're doing. And then now it's like, do you find that you're starting to navigate parenthood a little bit better at 7?
I don't know if I felt helpless when I first brought him home. I didn't feel helpless, but I just felt like, so Tracy breastfed. Mm-hmm. So I was pretty much like useless. It wasn't like I was helpless. Like, I wasn't like one of those guys like, don't give me the baby. I was 32, 33. So it wasn't like I had him in my 20s.
Yeah.
I knew what I was getting into. I wanted kids. So, but I did feel like at that point, like when they're first brought home and all they want to do is like eat every couple hours, that I was just like holding place. It was like, you know, I'd hold him for a few minutes and then he'd cry for the tit.
And that will continue as he gets older. No, just teasing. But no, that's pretty good. It's pretty good. You know, parenthood is a great thing. It's fun. It can be aggravating, but it can be fun.
I'm working on the oldest sailing club, like boathouse in Ontario. It was built in I think in the late 1800s.
And so what
fireproofing? You're fireproofing. Yeah, so you're having to section it off into sections. You're doing that by putting 5/8 drywall. Because like if that building goes up, it's gonna go up. The wood is all original. The siding is all original. So if it's gonna go up, it's gonna go up. But I guess they want to try to keep the fire in one section. So we're giving it an hour so that the fire department can get there on time.
But it gotta be cool though to see some of the history that's going on with that building.
Yeah, for sure. Like there's pictures up from like World War II, at the end of World War II. It used to take planes as well, like water planes. And they used to have like a diving board off the big balcony and a slide and stuff. Obviously, the government would never let them get away with that.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it belongs to a section of government that's only in Ottawa. So it's like I can't remember the acronym, but like they're strictly for the capital region. And it's kind of like municipal but federal at the same time.
Okay.
So it only handles stuff in the city of Ottawa, but it's a federal department. And they're not elected. They're just
so they're like appointed and hired or whatever.
Yeah.
Cool. Man, it feels weird being back after so long being off, hey? And we got to say, though, thank you guys for being patient with us. We, really appreciate it.
And for the new people that are listening to our show, obviously, too, because they're still getting plays and downloads, even though we haven't put anything out in 25 days.
Well, this is the beginning.
The beginning of the end.
Yeah.
I quit. No, I'm just kidding. So we did have a guest for you tonight, but he had a medical situation, so he couldn't make it on. So we'll give him a rain check for another time.
So can I respond to your submissions, because I wanted to directly respond. I was actually thinking about this coming here because I thought that it was going to be one of the coming questions. How do we even start to decolonize science? Because science is true because it is science. And, what can you do? And my response to that was, if I personally were committed to enforcing decolonization, science as a whole is a product of Western modernity, and the whole thing should be scratched off, especially in Africa. So if you want practical solutions to how to decolonize science, we'd have to restart science from, an African perspective, from our perspective of how we've experienced science. For instance, I had a place for all the science people is, there's a place in KZN, in Kabialingana, and they believe that through the black magic, you call it black magic, they call it witchcraft, others, that you are able to send a lightning to strike someone. So can you explain that scientifically? Because it is something that happens
I need to address you directly. When we started this, we agreed on certain house rules. And by you doing that, you're disrespecting the sacredness of the space. And so I'd like to ask you to first please apologize to the panel directly And then number 2, understand the rules that we went by in this space. Because it's going to be very problematic. When we started, this is not an antagonizing space. And so what you're trying to do is collapse the space and make it antagonizing, which we will not allow. This is a progressive space for people to say their opinions. And we have noted how those opinions are going to be laid out. So I would like you to first apologize and then go on and agree to abiding by the rules of the space. Otherwise, I would, if you're not willing to do that, I'd please ask you to remove yourself from the space. But those are the rules of engagement of the space.
Okay, very sorry to
Okay, and you agree to abide by the rules of the space. Thank you. Please carry on.
So I'll finish. See, that very response is the reason why I am not in the science faculty. I did science throughout my high school years, and there was a lot of things that I just, but it's fine. But Western modernity is the direct antagonistic factor to decolonization, because Western knowledge is totalizing. It is saying that it was Newton and only Newton who knew or saw an apple falling, and then out of nowhere decided that gravity existed and created an equation, and that is it. For the whether people knew Newton or not, or whether whatever happens in Western Africa, Northern Africa, the thing is, the only way to explain gravity is through Newton, who sat under a tree and saw an apple fall. So Western modernity is the problem that decolonization directly deals with, to say that we are going to decolonize by having knowledge that is produced by us, that speaks to us, and that is able to accommodate knowledge from our perspective. So if you're saying that you disagree with her approach, it means that you are vested in the Western and Eurocentric way of understanding, which means you yourself still need to go back internally, decolonize your mind, come back and say, how can I relook at what I've been studying all these years? Because Western knowledge is very pathetic, to say the least. I, from a decolonized perspective, believe we can do more as new knowledge producers, as people who are given the ability to reason or whatever is that people say we do when we think or rationalize. So decolonizing the science would mean doing away with it entirely and starting all over again to deal with how we respond to the environment and how we understand it. Thank you.
Okay. I have a response to it.
Okay, just to start off, just to give some background. This was a group of students that asked members of the science faculty, as well as students of the science faculty, to a meeting where they wanted to talk about some concerns. And this was a 4-minute segment of the concerns they had. And this is in the University of, or South African University.
In Cape Town.
Yeah, in Cape Town.
Yeah. The other thing is, when she was talking, she kept on looking at her iPad for notes. It's like, which way do you want it? You don't want science, you don't want Western culture, but you're gonna read your notes off your iPad. It's pretty crazy. It's no different than, say, a creationist in the States or Canada, because that South African university is like the go-to university for Africans. So even if you think, well, it's part of her culture that they believe in black magic or witchcraft, it's no way to move it forward in Africa to not have that type of thinking anymore.
And it also stems from, David, that this is a movement to try to decolonialize all of Africa, but they make this correlation between colonization and education, and especially science in this regard. Science is a universal language. It's not a Western ideology. It's not an Eastern ideology. It is science, period. And
so the schooling is Western in South Africa. They do have Western schooling. They've had it since the apartheid days, and I'm assuming before then. But science is true no matter what, so it doesn't really matter who's teaching it.
Right. I mean, it's
the method.
Yeah, I was going to say that. It's not so much about
it's the method is true.
The way of discovering what is true is probably the best way we've discovered to do that, to figure out what's true, what's false. So if people believe that you can send lightning with black magic, okay. I just figure out if that's true, and do you have a good method of determining if that's true or not, right? And if she's going to disprove that or reject that, well, then I'm not sure how she's going to figure out if that really happens or if that's something that can exist, right?
Yeah, I just don't know how she figures that. I know she's a university student, but it speaks to a larger culture of, again, creationists, extreme religious people, woo people, fucking conspiracy people. Like, I just don't understand how they think their society's going to run without science. And again, she was looking at an iPad the whole fucking time. So your society is not going to run the way that it is. You can forget about your hospitals. You can forget. I just don't think that they clearly thought it through. And I can understand African people not liking colonization and having resentment towards it, but science isn't the bone to be picking with that. It's probably, wage and class in society that she should be going after.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I also found very awkward about this encounter was the fact of the safe space, where no competing or dissenting opinion could be spoken. Like that young fellow who said that just isn't true was basically told to shut up and sit down, know your place. You're here to listen and not to speak. And I think that was a very, very, telling part of this whole encounter.
Yeah, what's crazy about that is that they called the science faculty and students in and expected them to just sit there and listen to fucking bullshit. Because that's fucking, like, I was being nice before, but that's bullshit. It's fucking immature magic bullshit thinking. And I wouldn't have, if they would have said that to me, I would have just left. I would have told her you're fucking dumb and left. Because it's like, you can't answer back. You have to sit there and listen to nonsense. So they're going to tell you how science is bad.
Yeah.
And you're a scientist and you're supposed to just sit there and take it. And he wasn't even that confrontational. He just said it wasn't true.
Right. And I mean, I understand in some ways, it's the university itself at fault because, especially in social sciences, you find that there is this, this correlation that every culture is equal across the world. And every mode of understanding a culture is equal. You can't knock one culture over another because they have, for them, that's the same as our culture, for instance. And that mode of understanding people is wrong. I mean, that puts us into a really precarious predicament because we do have to say, no, those type of beliefs are archaic and backward. And here's the evidence we can provide you with evidence to prove that this doesn't work. A guy can't send electricity or a lightning bolt to another person.
Unless your name is Tesla.
Yeah. And I mean, the whole idea is ridiculous, but we're allowing people to equate that every culture has its own merits and we shouldn't talk about it.
Yeah, I agree with that. The other thing that pissed me off of that was the butchering of Newton.
Oh yeah, that's a story. That never ever took place. No apple ever fell on Newton's head. That's a wives'
I know,
tale.
and the just deciding that gravity existed, like you didn't just decide it existed.
No. And I mean, what we know of gravity today, where we had that new breakthrough where we actually saw gravitational waves that were predicted in the early 1900s, shows the power of science. We have the predictable power that if X is predicted and it doesn't follow suit, then we can throw it out. But we know that eventually the math will work and we will see what, science has been working with. I mean, that's why airplanes fly. Is because of the power of science.
Did the speaker in this, do we know what her major is? Is she like a science major? Because I think if she's a science major, I don't think she would have business even being accepted into university.
She's not a science major.
No, she said she wouldn't be she was not a part of the science faculty. And the reason why is because we laugh at scientists laugh at the idea that a person can send the lightning bolt. That was the whole contention with the young fellow who spoke up.
So she's being invited. This is like a science faculty.
Well, they invited the science faculty and students to tell them this. They called them there and wanted to tell them their concerns. But this is dangerous because you don't want this spreading, right? Now, I wouldn't censor what they're saying, but it's still you still need to fucking call them out and be in a place where you can call them out. And just being called into a place where the scientists aren't in a position, or like you're in a safe space basically, and they're not in a position to be able to answer back to them or call them out on the bullshit that they're saying. I just wouldn't take part in it because you're giving credence to them by even showing up and listening to like concerns. So you believe fucked up shit, so science is a concern, and I guess their concern is that it's tied into colonialism. I just it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make sense that science it's just a hatred of the West, really, and Western culture, pretty much is what she was saying. Like, I just don't know how she thinks African society is going to run. If she wants to go back to the way that it was before it was colonized, you can't have your iPad.
The university would fall. I mean, basically, this is what I'm still going to call this the regressive left. This is the idea that we can go backwards in time to a better state. What the right used to be. The right used to be the ones that said, no, we need to go back to a better, more pristine way of living, which was like in the 60s in the United States, is what they believe. But whereas the regressive left seems to be wanting to put us back even before that. I mean, this is ridiculous. And you're seeing this spread globally. I mean, this is South Africa. This was an American type of regression, but now it's spreading to other countries around the world.
Yeah, I don't necessarily see it any different, like I said, than you have your universities in the States and in Canada teaching creationism, pretending that they're teaching, like the private religious schools, pretending that they're teaching evolution as the fact, when in reality we all know that they're teaching it, but then they're saying, yeah, but this is what really happened. I don't see the difference between the two.
No, I agree. I think it's the same type of mentality. It's an ideology running ahead or despite the evidence against your opinion.
Yeah, it's magical thinking.
Yeah,
but I think it's her opinion. I'm not sure there's anyone's representing like what they're teaching, but I think that she definitely shows. I do agree with you, Ed. It's regressive thinking. It's definitely going back to it's rejecting evidence based.
So it was an entire student group, though, eh, David? It wasn't just one person. She was just the one that happened to be speaking, but it was like an entire group of students that called the faculty in.
Yeah, this is a big movement.
What their thoughts were. I mean, this was her thoughts. I don't know. Like, I'm sure there was lots of people I heard laughter, so I'm sure there were many people that disagreed with her opinion.
Yeah, that was the faculty.
I didn't. Was there a video? I don't know. But
there is a video.
Faces, but I'm not really sure. But I heard ridicule.
Well, no, the laughter was in ridicule of the science guy that stood up and said it's not true.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So when you're looking at when you watch the video, there's a video component. And in the video, when he gets up and says it just isn't true, they are laughing at him, saying that, look, see, this colonial guy, his brain is colonialized. He can't think straight. It's almost as if you were laughing at a creationist. And this guy is the guy that, is part of the science faculty saying, what the hell do you mean?
Yeah. And they were kind of like, prejudiced towards him as being colonialized.
Yeah.
Right?
And I know there's no such thing as reverse racism, but this is a type of bigotry that is running rampant lately that you see it's almost like in the regressive form. It's a racism that is sprouting out against the West in some respects. And I don't know how you say it any other way. I don't know. Racism it's been thrown around in so useless a term nowadays.
Prejudice is what it is.
Yeah, and it's really, really starting to affect major institutions, and then the universities are falling victim first.
Yeah, but you also have to think that it's just kids that are having bad ideas, right? Like when I was a teenager, I had some really fucking bad ideas. If you had social media when I was a teen, man, oh man, oh man, I would have said and done the dumbest shit on social media. Like, I'm so lucky Facebook and YouTube wasn't around.
Yeah, but
I'm not saying that we shouldn't nip it in the bud, and I'm not saying it's not the wrong type of thinking. I'm just saying we do have to remember that these are kids.
I did some research. It's not just, a group of students that believe this concept. There are actual professors that are teaching this. And that's the scary part.
That is.
Because I think she and her group are a product of indoctrination from a professor.
Mm-hmm.
Or multiple professors, but at least one that I know of. And I think that's disturbing. This is a trend you're seeing in the United States as well.
Yeah, I agree that if teachers, the university should be sacking them, the people that are teaching that.
Well, if you have tenure, what are you going to do?
I don't know. I don't understand how tenure works, but I mean, like, you must be able to get rid of a professor if he starts talking stupid.
One would think, but it's crazy.
I agree. Well, let's hope that they are the minority and that fucking reason prevails.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we need to do is just, if we see this type of behavior, regressive behavior, is to speak out. It's something that needs to be done. We have to have some pushback against this type of ideological shift that's happening.
Yeah. Somebody should send Neil deGrasse Tyson over to speak with her.
Yeah, I mean...
Oh, I thought you were going to say someone should send deGrasse Tyson a lightning bolt.
No. Why would I kill fucking...
I know it would be a lightning bolt of power.
The power is yours. Remember, like, Captain Planet? The power is yours.
Did you know that they're making a movie out of the cartoon?
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, and just so you people don't think that we're only going to go after Africa, in the next few segments we're going to be talking about religious schools in North America, funding of religious schools, and the batshit crazy teachings that go along with it. And Ed's going to play a clip for us.
While I think it's important all schools teach about the culture of religion, I'm worried that faith schools are allowed to do far more. Even the mild old Church of England has openly set out its aim, through the Archbishop's Council, for its some 5,000 schools to nourish those of the faith, encourage those of other faiths, challenge those who have no faith. What does that mean for those on the sharp end, our children?
I suppose what we are trying to indoctrinate into is a view that faith matters. What you would expect here is to find that the collective worship means something. But the main aim is to not just learn about major faiths, but to have something of an experience of faith. One of the things that's very difficult to do when you're older is to make a decision on something about which you know nothing and have experienced nothing. So it would be very easy for someone to say, oh, religion's all a load of rot, without actually ever having encountered what it's like lived. And so the Christian Foundation enables some of that to be part of these children's experience, not in a way that expects them to sign on the dotted line, but to say, this is what it is like. It's part of your learning and your education to see how it works.
Janina Ainsworth and I disagree here. She feels it's important to experience faith in school, but for me this is indoctrinating children too young to defend themselves. I worry that religions like getting to children young precisely because that's when they're at their most impressionable. What children absorb at a young age can last a lifetime. Should it really be the dogma and daily rituals of religion? And faith schools do much more, of course, than hymns and prayers. The hard edge of the indoctrination goes on in RE, religious education, for which many faith schools teach their own syllabus, and often parents contribute money for the lessons. We weren't granted access to film any RE or faith studies at a Jewish or Catholic school. So I turned to someone who has systematically collected information for years on what actually goes on.
The problem is that it's totally deregulated. The governing bodies of state-funded faith schools have control over their religious education curriculum. Ofsted inspects the religious education in other state-funded schools, but in state-funded religious schools they have their own religious inspectorates to inspect those lessons. Yeah. Yes. And that really compounds problems in other subjects. So a lot of faith schools, particularly Catholic schools, will teach their sex and relationships education in their RE. Lots of faith schools do the same with citizenship education. So all those subjects become seen through a religious filter.
How much time do they actually spend on faith as opposed to ordinary education?
Well, we have an example here of a Jewish, state-funded Jewish faith school, where in year 7, that's the first form in secondary school, pupils have 8 hours of religious instruction every fortnight, which compares with 6 hours per fortnight for science and far outweighs any subject in the secular curriculum.
Yeah, in that clip that I just played, the idea that religious schools are not there to indoctrinate is just a face that they put onto the public. And
well, it's fucking bullshit. Come on, you're dealing with children. That's exactly what it is. It's to keep them away from worldly children and worldly teachings.
Yeah, I mean, just think about what that guy just said. He said specifically that this curriculum is not looked at from a regular base, like from a regular school system perspective. They can teach their own values on birth control, sex education, which, as we know from the United States, works fucking wonders. Note sarcasm there. But I mean, this is the type of thing that, as we get further into this conversation, I really want to de-emphasize what damage faith schools can do to the average student.
Yeah, and the other thing that's important to kind of put out there is, like, I have stats for Canada. I don't have stats for the U.S., but enrollment in the minority religious private schools between 1960 and 1975 doubled, and then it more than doubled again from 1975 to year 2000. So I mean, like, it's not a small problem.
No,
and their numbers are growing by like 10,000 every year.
And we got to remember, this stuff isn't cheap. Like we talked about that was talked about in the clip, that parents might have to contribute. Well, I mean, in many places, especially in Canada, that can be anywhere from $4,000 to up to $52,000 per semester. So you're talking major amounts of money going into these systems, and no one's doing that without having the corollary expectation that religion is going to be the main focus of the curriculum.
Yeah, and it's expensive to go there, and some of them are extreme teachings. Like, take the I'm going to butcher this, Sading Islamic School in around where Dave lives in Thornhill, just outside of Toronto. They segregate gym class between boys and girls, and that's like $4,000 per year just for that one. So you're paying a buttload of money to send your kids to learn a backwards culture.
Yeah,
not just the religious teaching, but the segregation of boys and girls. And there was a case in England where you had an extreme Islamic teacher teaching that it is not okay for girls or women to say no to their husbands for sex, and it's okay for men to take the sex when the wife says no. And that was being taught in one of their private Islamic schools.
And you know, you're starting the children off very young. I know in that particular school in Ontario, it's compulsory for girls to cover their heads with a white veil and have loose-fitting clothing. They can't have anything revealing. And so my biggest concern is twofold. I have two major concerns, and one of them is the fact that they're indoctrinating and teaching fiction over facts. But the other one is with these faith schools, there is no way to integrate these people so that they, not just Muslims, but Jewish children are being segregated from Christians, and Christians are being segregated from Muslims. This whole integration that we need as a community at large is being forcibly stopped. And you're getting people that probably new immigrants to our country that should be integrating. So they should be having the opportunity to have their children learn the language, learn the customs, and do that in school where they're losing out. And that's one of the big problems I have here with this.
And not only that, but they're changing the curriculum. The government is changing it for these religious schools by allowing them not to give homework on their special religious holidays. No, for Jewish children, no testing on the Sabbath, no testing on religious holidays. And these Jewish schools, they also want the government to start funding half. So the parents are actively seeking out that the government, and many of the religious schools have taught the parents a tax loophole that ends up paying for part of their school, and that's all across Canada. Where in British Columbia actually does fund up to 50%.
Yeah, I mean, and you're also looking too in your particular neck of the woods, David. The Catholic system is actually publicly funded, and
yes,
and that is enshrined in your Constitution, is it not?
Yes. Yep. I went to Catholic high school for a year. I will admit it's fairly secular. Like you do have one class of religious study. I was promptly kicked out of there for asking too many stupid questions, according to the teacher. But we all know it was because I was causing other children to think. And then they have mass, which you're not forced to go to. If you don't want to go to mass, you don't have to. But I went to mass just to check it out. It's very cultish.
I mean, David went through, didn't you, David, went through the whole schooling system in a Catholic system as well?
Yep, I went through K to 12 in the Catholic system. And here you can check, like you can, as a taxpayer, you can select, if you're a Catholic or in the secular system, you can select which tax dollars go to the system. You vote which city, which school trustee you can vote for. So there's some options there. It's just, I think the real issue is whether or not we should be even devoting tax dollars to.
Well, of course we shouldn't be. There should be one public school system.
And that's been a debate that's come up here and there over the course of Ontario politics. Now there's also schools too that are completely outside the system, right? I mean, here.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Basically,
I'm a very Sikh community. I'm in a very Sikh community, so I know there's a big Sikh school. I have no idea what they teach there. I'm not sure what the curriculum is. But there's some options we can take, right? I mean, you can accredit a school, right? As a government institution, you can say, well, a degree from this school is going to be recognized or not. We can, if the government wants to subsidize a religious school, they can say, well, okay, maybe they can, but you have to use our curriculum and you have to have standards and whatever.
Yeah,
that's an option.
Sorry to interrupt you. The problem that I have with that, though, David, is that they may say, yeah, we're going to teach your standard curriculum throughout the country, and we're going to teach evolution, but you know that they're not going to teach it as fact. The part that's going to be taught as fact is whatever their religion may be, whether it's Allah or Jesus or whatever they're teaching at that time. You know that's the one that they're gonna put at the forefront. So even the ones that are accredited, I don't think it's the same. It's really the same education that they're getting. And you may say, well, there's lots of religious kids that go to public school and they believe that their religious teachings supersede the teachings from school, but that's the parents that's doing it, not the government, not the government and not the school, right?
And the government should not be like there should be one system, and all our tax dollars should be put into that one system and not spread out. It's just
so the exact wording on how they get funding for it right now that was used by the religious minority schools was and this is in Ontario, many religious schools in Ontario encourage parents to use a tax workaround. Government allows partial charity. So what they're doing is they're calling it a charity donation to the religion, which I have a problem with in the first place, religions being a charity.
Well, this is a great segue to our next clip. So I'm going to play this next clip, and I want you to focus really intently on what the school is actually proposing here. And
One Faith was brave enough to open its doors to filming.
Right, Assalamu alaikum girls. Right, now, we know what we're going to do this lesson. We're going to do some drama. I'm just thinking to myself, how universal is this story?
Like back then, everything was according to the family, you got to obey them.
This is Madani High School, an all-Muslim secondary school in Leicester, and one of 11 Muslim faith schools now in the state system. I've come to see firsthand how faith and education mix. This school gets good results, and many of the girls here hope to become the next generation of lawyers, doctors, and teachers.
Faith schools are sometimes accused of closing children's minds down by teaching them this is the one true faith, and you get your truth from Holy Scripture rather than from opening your mind to the world.
Well, there's slightly a misunderstanding from those who think that way. If you come to our school and if you look at our lessons, they're very much open minds, thinking critically, understanding the world in a very critical fashion.
Like all state schools, they teach national curriculum science here. But like many faith schools, they supplement this with religious lessons that they control and which are not subject to Ofsted inspection.
In our school, when our teachers tell us stuff like teacher stuff, it's like whether it's up to us whether we believe it or not. The teachers do not disrespect our decision. Everybody has a right to their own decision at the end of the day.
Yes. Suppose we take a fact like, are we and chimpanzees cousins? I mean, do you believe that we're cousins of chimpanzees? Or monkeys?
No, I wouldn't think so.
What do your perhaps we have a science teacher, have we? What do you teach about that?
Well, yeah, we learn about in the curriculum because that's what we follow. We teach them the theory of evolution, but then I do tell them we in Islam our opinion about it, and the girls also have their own opinion and ask questions. So, Miss, do we really come from chimpanzees? But they all have their own opinions for that, and then come to their own decision, which every single one of them realise that actually we didn't, because we believe differently.
Every single one of them comes to the conclusion that we did not evolve.
Yeah.
Everybody in your science class, everybody in the school comes to that conclusion.
Well, in my class, yes, they did.
How many is that? I mean,
I teach 60 year 10 students, so right. 60 of them.
And all 60 of them end up rejecting evolution.
Yes, because obviously they have their beliefs, which is Islam.
Yeah, about evolution. Evolution is that human evolved from apes and stuff. But if there are still apes here, then how did human evolve from apes?
This is the commonest question I ever get. What's the answer of your science teacher to that?
But I wanted to point the question to you because I wanted to know your opinion.
Well, I'm going to give you the answer, but we've been told that your science teacher teaches the theory of evolution. I'm interested to know.
That's exactly what we teach them, that humans evolved from apes.
Yeah.
And through natural selection, we became humans.
But her question is, why are there still apes?
Well,
I'll tell you why there are still apes. Firstly, we are not just evolved from apes, we are apes. And when animals evolve from other animals, it's not that they supersede them. It's not that we've evolved from chimpanzees. Chimpanzees and we have evolved from a shared ancestor who lived about 6 million years ago and who was neither a human nor a chimpanzee.
There's a bigger point at stake here than evolution, of course. What's worrying is that a school that says it wants its pupils to be open-minded is, through its religious training, also guiding them to reject factual evidence at the very core of science and rational thought. Where does that lead?
The school's job is to provide all the information. It is up to the individuals to see what they believe and what they don't believe. So I'd like to leave the choices to these young people.
Yes, so you think that matters of scientific fact are a matter of personal choice based on traditional faith?
Well, none of the reports that I've read says that evolution is a scientific fact. Just as there's a scientific theory which says evolution is there's another perspective, from a faith perspective, that says, no, God created all human beings. But I hope you'll see that from our young people, evolution is only one small thing in their lives, and probably an insignificant thing in their lives.
It's not a small thing in the life of a science teacher. She will teach children things which are contrary to the entire scientific community. Now, that's not a small thing. That's actually quite a large thing. If science says one thing and the Quran says the other, who do you go with?
Well, I'd like to believe that because scientific knowledge and Quran are essentially from the same creator, there won't be a conflict. The conflict will probably arise in our understanding of those facts.
Well, that sounds reasonable to me. My advice, if you pardon me for offering advice, would be, you are never going to win the fight against evolution. It is a fact. What you should do is to look at the Quran and reconcile it with evolution, which is what the Christians have done.
Do you see the duplicity there? The idea that this is the curriculum we're teaching, which is what we're supposed to. This is the evolution topic.
That's exactly what I was saying before, is that they may be told to teach that, but they're not actually teaching that.
No. And I mean, this next clip that I'm going to play for you, it's only a short one, but it puts in perspective how badly this school is actually teaching the curriculum. And it blew my mind away. It literally blew my mind away.
In RE, we learned about science and the Quran. By the end of the day, we all came to one conclusion, that the Quran is evidence of science. So what science has proved to be just recently is already proved in the Quran 1400 years ago when it was written.
But that doesn't include evolution, apparently.
No, it doesn't.
So what does it include?
It includes stuff like the shape of the earth, about the mountains, how they secure the earth.
And how in the sea the two waters, they don't mix, the salty water and the drinking water, so it's pure for us to drink. They don't mix, but they pass through each other.
Salty water and fresh water don't mix in the sea?
No, it's like
it's a natural barrier.
I was shocked that RE elbows out science like this.
So you think the Quran is a good source of scientific information?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right, and you're the one who wants to be a doctor, is that right? Yes.
Like, can you see that, how bad that is? Salt and fresh water can't mix? That is just basic science. I mean, what the fuck are they teaching these kids?
Well, it's the exact same as shooting lightning bolts out your ass or whatever they're doing in Africa.
Yeah, it's the same mentality.
And I want to reiterate something here. This is not a small problem. 6% of United States and Canada go to these types of schools. 6% of the students.
Yeah, you're talking 53,000 in Ontario alone.
Yeah, this is not a small problem. And our children are being taught the same way. I know this clip is from England, but they're being taught the same way in North America.
I mean, what are we supposed to do to compete with that? I mean, I'm really shocked that Ontario is so far behind in this. I mean, the capital of our country is in Ontario, and I'm in Newfoundland and buttfuck nowhere, where religion really rules the day, yet we got rid of denominational education back in the 90s. I just don't understand.
Yeah, but you must have private religious schools.
We have one private religious school, but we have nothing publicly funded. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, this is ridiculous.
Like, I think that's a separate issue. So I think publicly funded religious schools are different than privately funded because they work on the same curriculum. Like,
yeah.
You know, it's like the same tax dollars goes towards Catholic and separate schools. But like, if you're going to if it's like a private, school of a different religion, then we definitely need to check what they're teaching and sort of investigate that, right? I think this UK school is a private, like a Muslim school, right?
Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is. But when I gave the number for 6%, that's private religious schools.
Yeah.
Okay, so 6% is 6% of the students in in North America, or not North America, in US and Canada go to these types of schools. And the point that Edward is making is that in some way in Ontario, it may not be as bad as a Catholic school, but in some ways, these private schools are being funded through tax workarounds. And even, you remember Mike Harris, hey, David?
Yeah.
So during 2002 until 2003, Mike Harris actually funded those schools. So it's not like they were never funded in Ontario, those private and minority religious schools. They were.
And you're talking in BC, they're 50% funded.
Yeah, exactly. To this day, right now in British Columbia, they fund up to 50%, depending on the parent's income.
I wonder about the poll. I know this has come up, I think, too, on provincial elections ago, and it was a mixed bag. I don't know what the polling was in terms of what people's support is, but regardless, it wasn't done. Like, there was not a full defunding of separate school board stuff.
We have to change the Ontario Constitution in order to do that. So it needs to be amended. So it needs to be taken to court, really.
But I think we also have to have a good debate about it too. I think it's just been done as a side. Like, I've seen various articles about it. You know, your typical newspapers, Globe and Mail, they've made arguments for the defunding of schools. We should have a serious conversation about that. And
which political party, and I'll even lump the NDP in now because of their religious backing of Islam, which political party in Ontario is going to be the one that takes the hit on all those Catholic votes when they defund the Catholic school board? None of them are going to have the fucking balls to do it.
I voted Green because of that.
Yeah.
And the 2 elections ago, that was a part of their party platform. So that's one of the reasons why I voted them.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to have to find a home in the Green Party, I think, because at this point, they're the most secular.
I mean, in Newfoundland, it took the Mount Cashel incident, I think, to really bust that stronghold for religious education. But I still don't like the private religious school system any less. I mean, I think that the idea that you're segregating a certain segment of your population to different religious sects doesn't allow for a proper integration and may lead to major problems down the road.
Listen, I wouldn't accredit any of them. I wouldn't.
As a secularist, I agree. I wonder if that would be constitutional, though.
It was. We amended our constitution in Newfoundland.
Okay, so so then, yeah, if you're going to do an amendment, if there's a political will in Ontario, I would definitely support that. As it stands now, definitely that needs to be done. Looks like you probably get a good legal argument saying that you can't deny. I'm sure the government also has some power in accreditation, right? Saying, well, okay, you can have a religious school, but we can lessen your degree because it doesn't meet the provincial standards of requirement, the provincial educational requirements. I don't know, I'm not the expert on that, but I can see how maybe they can do it that way. So that would be like an incentive.
Yeah, but even with the Catholic school board, when I did go to the Catholic school for 1 year in religious studies, the teacher, the woman, she was teaching Jesus as fact, like stuff in the Bible as fact. It wasn't like, this is what the Bible says. It was as fact. Now I can remember, I'm 40, so I'm a little older than you guys, or I'll be 40 in March, being in public school, and we had religious studies in public school. Christian denomination, whatever, would come to the school and they would have I don't know if you guys remember felt boards, how they would have the felt cut out.
Yeah.
Put it on the board and they would stick and make people out of it. And they would do the manger story and the Genesis story on these felt boards, teaching us that ended pretty quick, and the Lord's Prayer got canceled. But the Lord's Prayer didn't get canceled because I think things became more secular. I think the Lord's Prayer got canceled because other religious people started moving into the schools and were offended by the Christian Lord's Prayer. I don't think it was because of secularism.
And I think one of the biggest things that when you're thinking about this whole concept of religious indoctrination in schools, the concept you have to think about is socially, how are these kids going to graduate and integrate in a secular society? And I'd like to come back to that after the break and actually just get into that, dive into that.
I can't be sure indoctrination triumphs over real learning like this in other faith schools, but I do worry there's nothing to stop it happening. I think RE must be taught critically so that the factual evidence of history and science are properly respected. In my view, RE should be part of a national curriculum and subject to Ofsted inspection like other subjects. The Church of England told us it wouldn't oppose a national curriculum for RE, and I welcome that. The Board of Deputies of British Jews claims critical thinking is intrinsic to Jewish faith education, and their inspectors inspect their schools' RE in a way that matches Ofsted requirements. But then, why not let Ofsted inspect their RE in the first place? I think there's something deeper going on here. Supporters of faith schools claim they're in some way necessary to allow groups to hand their religious culture down the generations. I understand the argument, but what is the impact of this across our society? One former Muslim feels concerned that faith schools are resurrecting barriers where there need be none.
When I first arrived in the UK back in the early 1970s, myself, my friends, my family, we encountered a lot of racism, and we often felt excluded. And things have improved, and it shocks me, it saddens me that people like me are now choosing to self-segregate when others have worked so hard to allow us to mix and to join in and to be part of a wider community. For me, what's exciting about the world is the range of ideas we can encounter, and to separate yourself off from that, from the rest of humanity, frankly, is deeply, deeply tragic.
Some faiths claim they actually promote community cohesion through their schools, and that this is recognised by Ofsted. But, as we've seen, Ofsted doesn't inspect what's taught in faith schools' RE lessons, nor does it consider the school's admission policies, which can discriminate along religious lines. I'm worried that faith schools in fact encourage separation from mainstream society. Now I want to ask how important it is for parents to have the right to preserve their culture through their children's school, or whether this creates a dangerous and divisive them and us mentality.
Yeah, that the very concept of having the us versus them concept in the schooling system does make you not a part of the grander society as a whole. And I think that leads to major issues. And you're seeing them in Britain, and I think that's going to start emulating in countries like Canada that are actually, allowing faith schools to pop up everywhere.
Yeah, I think that in some ways Canada is kind of the perfect breeding ground for something like this, as the national attitude is live and let live with other cultures. So we it's part of our country's motto to let people come in and keep their culture, good or bad. So I think Canada itself is a perfect breeding ground for this type of school.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine cutting yourself off? As that gentleman just spoke about how, when he first came to the country, there was some, racism but as time progressed, those things went away as people began to integrate and become part of the society. That this stuff went away. But now we're in a society now that really wants to segregate, and if we start segregating, what my fear is that in the future, next few years, you'll see major issues coming up with a lack of cohesion within Canada. And I think that's a major problem that we're going to face, especially with the new influx of immigrants on a major scale.
So in Ontario, we've had the biggest debate we've had in the last year is probably the new sex ed curriculum. And if you look at the protests against the new sex ed curriculum, which is, it's supposed to be pro LGBT, it updates sex health in Ontario. If you look at the protesters, the majority of them were probably people of immigrant status, lots of Sikh, lots of Muslim people, and there's a few like other cultures in there, but the government still pretty much stood strong because it was a religious objection. The majority of the objection was religious. It was more like the government shouldn't be teaching. The government can teach anything else but this subject, and it's up for us to teach we parents to teach our subject. But I was actually pretty impressed where the government actually stood strong and didn't budge in many of the main issues, right? The core principles. So I'm not sure, at least in that respect.
So they may be not budging in that aspect, but they're still allowing them to teach creationism as fact, and they're not in public schools, but in those.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you have an accredited religious school, then you shouldn't be allowed to teach creationism and all those other things. It should.
It's science class, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
But they are being taught religion as fact and creationism as fact.
Yeah, they can't do that.
Because you can say it shouldn't be taught in the science room, but you damn well know that the teachers that are teaching it in that science classroom are of that religion in those private schools. They're not going to start hiring a bunch of secular teachers to come in and start teaching science as fact. It's not going to happen. You saw it, you heard it in the clip earlier.
Oh, so you're saying that if a teacher is of a certain religion, then they're going to be...
Okay, in those private religious schools, all of those teachers that are in those private religious schools are going to be of that faith, including the science teacher.
They've actually had teachers fired for not being a part of that religion, right? When they find out, like, say someone's a lapsed Catholic and they're going to a private Catholic school, when they find out that they're a lapsed Catholic, they're fired because they have to be a active member to be able to go and teach in the schools, and that's a discriminatory process right there.
Do you guys know, actually, when I was looking at teaching jobs in the separate system, like you have to teach as a Catholic teacher in our publicly funded Catholic schools, like you need to sign like a statement of faith.
See, there you go. That's what I'm saying.
I thought that was the strangest thing. There's these little caveats that, indoctrination and religion kind of gets into the system, in the public system. And
exactly. So now take that and apply that to an Islamic school or to, say, a Pentecostal school, and imagine a Pentecostal science teacher in a science classroom actually teaching evolution as fact. You know that's not happening, David.
And especially when the parents are paying for it. I mean, you're talking about major money coming to this.
But these parents don't want evolution taught as fact. So they're happily paying that money.
And part of the issue, too, is like these young children, don't have a choice. Like they have to go to school because the parents have been indoctrinated and they are going to go to that school. They can't do anything about it. There's no choice on their part. They're relying on their parents, and that's a big issue, right? It's really about speaking to parents and convincing them that there's a better choice.
Yeah, for sure. And in our society and in the United States, you have a right to freedom of religion, but I don't think that schools should be tied into that. I don't think that school and religion should be mixed together. I wouldn't accredit any of the private religious schools, and if I was an employer that had a company that you needed an education for, and I had two new hires or one new hire, and two people come and they both have basically the same experience, except one's from Trinity College and the other one's from U of T, I'm going to hire the secular student. I just am. And it's not because I'm bigoted towards religious people. I would just hold the secular education higher than the religious education. I just would.
Well, I mean, at least you'll know what the thinking is. I mean, they have the secular student would have a proper way of understanding and really challenging opinion, where you have the sectarian student is based on a specific doctrinal interpretation of evidence. And if it goes outside that doctrinal worldview, then they have to give up, they have to give up that whole enterprise of challenging authority. Because once it goes to challenge the church, they have to stop. Their thinking shuts down.
And I had asked you the other day if there was any kind of Mormon school. Maybe you can explain what goes on with the Mormons, Edward, real quick, before we close out.
Yeah, well, in Mormon school, there is no Mormon schools that I know of. What they do normally, especially in Utah, is that you go to an average secular school, and there is a special period where all the students that are LDS or Latter-day Saint or Mormon, they leave and go. Sometimes they go to another school, or they remain in the same school, but they're taught what is called seminary lessons, and they are indoctrinated specifically in Mormon doctrine at that point. And this goes throughout your schooling. It's usually between 7 years of it, sometimes less, depending on where you're located.
And what do the Mormons teach about evolution?
Mormons don't believe in evolution, but they do believe in science. They believe God started everything. So
so they accept science, but they don't accept evolution.
Not to the grand point that they're not anti-evolutionists. They just don't believe that it accurately describes what happened to, the Garden of Eden story is actually real, and that humanity was basically a brutish creature up until God breathed life into it. Some people believe that.
Let's be honest. If they believe in the golden tablets and all the other crazy bullshit that they believe in, they accept some parts of science.
Right. I mean, what works for them. And I mean, some people wouldn't even go so far with that they believe in evolution at all. Some Mormons would throw it out carte blanche and say, no, the Genesis account is correct.
Let me ask you guys, is there a way for us to stop this, or is there a way for, moving forward, is there anything that you guys think can be done about this? First and foremost, I would say, no tax loopholes, no fucking funding, and no accreditation. You guys go ahead next.
I agree. No tax loopholes, no funding, but I also think that there has to be a shift in the zeitgeist. I think people have to understand that isolating certain segments of society away from each other is not beneficial, and treating everybody's religion as the same, as treating everybody's concepts or ideologies as equivalent, it is not getting us anywhere. It's actually making our country as a society weaker, and I think that's an important thing that we overlook too many times.
I think the most important thing is that the public dollars are not being funded, that are not being sent or spent on non-secular education. I think if we focus our dollars on a strong secular system, I think we create a good market for parents to send their kids, because the system is well funded. It has a good reputation. I think in many ways, depending on your class or income, sometimes parents feel that a religious school might be the better choice for their kids, because maybe there's different opportunities for them. If we stop spreading our money out and focus it on a nice, strong public education system, I think that's going to help.
Yeah, there is a myth perpetrated in Ontario that the Catholic school board has smaller classrooms and has a better education, which is just not true.
I don't think so. Secondly, so decreasing funding, I think I would focus more on accreditation and standards. So I would, the Dawkins clip mentioned that the inspectorates don't go to these religious schools. Some of the schools have their own. So I don't think that's acceptable. I think you need to have a standardized inspection system to make sure that if you're going to have these religious schools, that the curriculum is taught, it's standardized and taught properly, and is so if they do graduate from the school, that they have the same level of education that the rest of the.
Okay, and I'm going to disagree with you because I don't even want to pay an inspector to go around. I just want it gone. Like, I don't even want our tax dollars to go to an inspector.
That's an interesting point. So whatever we do, as long as it's legal and as long as it's per the Constitution, I think an argument can be made that if you restrict someone's accreditation for the school, I think we can have religious exercise lawsuits going on, and that can be.
I don't really think so because, like Edward had said earlier, that's not saying that you can't express your religion. It's just saying we're not going to accept your religion as part of the curriculum.
And I think that was the original intent of it, but I don't think law is interpreted that way. I totally agree with you, Dave, but the way cases have gone, it's ballooned out to one day you can freely exercise your religion based on how you run your store. It's not gone that
yeah,
but it's to be going that way.
What we really need is a badass lawyer, and B, a fucking like a what's that billionaire in England that owned Virgin Radio, Richard.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, we need a guy like that who's a secularist that is willing to spend some money to fucking get rid of this shit, right? Because it gets drawn out in court for a while, and people just don't have the money to spend on lawyers like this to.
But I also think, though, Dave, is we have to focus on the social issues. If you're segregating society, it comes back to that. You start segregating based on denomination, based on ethnic origin, what have you. The integration of a society crumbles because we're trying to balance everybody, and no one gets service. Everybody, the we versus them issue becomes exacerbated to a point where we're going to have an implosion within our society. And in some respects, the United States is experiencing that now.
Yeah, and it's not just that they segregate outside of the school, they segregate in the school, like gym class. And I was just reading a case that a woman's being sued for slander because she compared an Islamic school in Montreal to some camps in Pakistan and Afghanistan, where they were teaching that the girls should walk with their heads down and behind the boys, and that they're lesser than. So, I mean, yeah, the shit needs to stop anyways.
Yeah, I think if you're talking about Canada, it's good point. I think the result of the Trinity Western thing is going to really give us a clue of what's going to happen. It's really about stuff like that, right? Keeping your head down, social norms that go on within a school. Does the school have a right to impose that, or is that religious freedom? I think that's a very, very important case to see where at least Canada is going to go on that, and then we can sort of regroup from there, right, and see what's.
Yeah, maybe we should revisit this topic next year and see where things are.
Yeah, I really think though that this is where multiculturalism really hurts our country, because we do have this concept where everybody has or can be their own individual culture and survive within Canada. Yet when basic human rights are being violated by cultures in our own country, and we are powerless to defend them, the people that are being violated, there's something drastically wrong here. And I think that the religious school is just a start. It's just a symptom of this bigger problem that we're going to be facing in the future.
This was the Wayward Atheist podcast. Visit our new website at waywardatheists.com. Follow us on Spreaker, spreaker.com/waywardatheists. You can email us at waywardatheistpodcast@gmail.com. Find us on Twitter at waywardatheists and on facebook.com/waywardatheists. If you enjoy our content, feel free to leave us a review on iTunes, and feel free to support us at patreon.com/waywardatheists.